This is Let's Talk Sports Radio with sports guy Jordan Armitage.
All right to the water, all right to the pitch.
On 94.9 Bob FM.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
One last time, folks. Welcome to Let's Talk Sports Radio right here on 94.9 Bob FM. Jordan Armitage, the sports guy. What's up, Cayman? It's been an absolute pleasure doing this show for you. What are we, 26 or so episodes in? And it's the last one on Bob FM and the last one here at Hurley's Media. Why? Well, it's no secret to a few people that know me closely, but now make it official. The sports guy's heading home to Canada next month. So 4 great years in the Cayman Islands, 3 covering sports. It's been an absolute blast, but it's time to move on to new challenges, new opportunities. But I'm very grateful for this opportunity to do this show and, of course, to work on Cayman 27. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you to everyone, all the coaches and players that I've been able to get to know here in Cayman. It's been amazing. And that's what we will do, of course, on this show. We will talk some local sports to start off. We got head coach of Cayman Senior Men's National Team, Ben Pugh, starting us off in studio. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Jordan. How are you?
Oh, doing good, my man. Wild ride, and same goes for the Cayman Senior Men's National Team. 2 weeks ago now? It's the CONCACAF Nations C League Group A was fought in Barbados. Winner take all takes promotion into B League next year. Cayman and Barbados, of course, tied going into that game, and Barbados blanks Cayman on the road 3-0. Certainly a hard-fought game. You can check out the highlights, of course, on the CONCACAF YouTube or on CONCACAF social media. But certainly one thing that I noticed, and I'll let you, of course, talk about how you felt about your team's performance. Certainly size was a big factor. A lot of big, tall players for Barbados, which you could really see in the set pieces. You know, obviously they scored a nice header in the first half, 32 minutes in. And, it's just very evident, with that was certainly a factor. You could see, at least watching the highlights, is Barbados did have a number of, in terms of stature, big players, and it certainly lent them an advantage when it came to, set pieces, corners, things like that, being able to get better position and whatnot. But you tell me, staying in C League next year, a lot of big roller coaster year for, yourself and a lot of the programs. So how did you feel about the team's performance?
Yeah, overall, I'm extremely happy with how we did. I think that going into this process, obviously, we hadn't won a game in a number of years, and we've come away winning 4 out of 6 games and narrowly missing out on goal difference against a very good Barbados side who have a number of professional players playing at a very good standard. So first and foremost, very happy with how we did, as I said. And going into that game, we knew it was going to be tough. For the first 20, 25 minutes, we actually played pretty well. We were... We defended very well. We were resilient, and we actually looked a threat going forward. Woody had a good chance in the first 5 minutes or so. But like you said, physically they were very, very good. Every player, with the exception of one who started, was over 6 foot, and the guy that didn't, his legs were like tree trunks. He was physically very good. And I think if we didn't concede so early, so we conceded, like you said, in the 32nd minute, I think if we didn't concede so early, and maybe we'd have held on to the 70th, 75th minute, I think maybe we would have got through. But unfortunately, because we concede that goal, as the game progresses, we have to be a little bit more expressive, and we have to obviously push for a goal, and that's not really our game. Our game is built upon being defensively good and well organised and playing on the counter-attack. So we had to naturally had to change that because we needed a goal, and unfortunately when we did that, we got caught on the counter-attack a couple of times, and 3-0 probably isn't a fair reflection of the game. But that's football. Sometimes it happens, and as I said, though we get beaten and we're very disappointed not to qualify, it's been big strides forwards, and I think this is only the start of something very good. It certainly isn't the end. I think if you look at the players that we have a large number of players that are very young. Like as I said, we have players that are 18 years old who are making appearances, and 17 with Barry, who played a couple of games. So we're in good shape, and these players will get better. The experience from the tournament is, from these qualifying games, is invaluable, and I think the future is definitely very, very bright.
Yeah, no, I would agree. There's lots of positives to take away from the Nations League. I think the fact that, there's a significant youth movement happening in the senior team, creating competition, I think is good, not trotting out the same roster year after year, creating that meritocracy. You practice well, you do the things to, benefit the team, you get to play on the team, right? So, what is the biggest deal? Obviously you beat Barbados 3-2 here on Grand Cayman, and then to lose 3-0, there's a number of factors, that maybe or maybe not are out there, have been reported. You have the fact that you guys didn't have electricity at your hotel for 2 days when you were there for a number of days, and you didn't have electricity is one. Barbados had, of course, the home advantage, so they could pick from a bigger talent pool as opposed to traveling here with a smaller team. What was the biggest difference between the two games?
Yeah, I think those factors are obviously important, but I think ultimately, when it came down to it, on the day they were better than us. We certainly make no excuses for how we played. I think that, as I said, that the fact that they have a number of professional players is a massive advantage for them. I think that the biggest problem we have is all of our players pretty much play on islands, so the level of football they're exposed to is completely different. And I think it's key that we get as many of these players off island as we can over the next 6 months to a year, because what this competition has highlighted is we need more games like that, and only having 6-7 games a year, though they're a very good standard, we just need more of those. So if we can get players, as I said, off island as soon as possible, that has to be the focus.
And so how do you, obviously, anybody that follows the Premier League here, it's the same standard, there's competition, of course, the transfer window prior to the season, you have players moving. I mean, this season, you had Joni Ebanks, longtime academy player, go to Scholars, Premier League powerhouse. Jarrell went from, Roma to Jarrell Belfonte went from Roma to Scholars. So there is some, to create less parity, there is the transfer window. But I think at the end of the day, what is, is that a CIFA plan? Is that a player plan? What is the plan to, because I mean, that's across sports. That's something, even myself reported on in all sports, athletics, swimming, whatever sport, cricket, rugby, you have to have people competing at a high level. You can't just compete against the same guys all the time. Does CIFA have a plan? Do the players know how they're going to accomplish this? We have some, Mason, Elon University, have a number of different players getting around the world. You have Elijah Seymour, who plays in Romania now. So what is the plan? Is that a CIFA plan, or is that on the players? How does Cayman get to that goal of getting more of our players in better levels of competition so that they can perform better on the national level?
Yeah, I think it falls on both sets of people's shoulders. So I think, yes, players first and foremost have to have that desire, and they have to want to go overseas. But I think as CIFA, we have a responsibility to try and get players opportunities. I think that I have obviously some good contacts in England, and a number of other people have contacts in the States, so which I think is a far more viable option, especially with for the young players in a college or university program. I think that is the best option available. But I think that, as you said, I think that that we have to make this our main focus, and I think that even younger players, 15, 16, 17s, the sooner we can get players off island and playing more competitive football at a higher intensity, the better the national team will be longer term. I think that, though obviously with the senior team we plan for now, I think that we're also planning for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So this we have to focus on long-term player development, not only on how things are at the moment.
So moving forward, you've got the Under-20 CONCACAF Championships coming up. You yourself, former academy head coach, now you're full-time with CIFA. So what's the plan moving forward now? Obviously a busy 3 months with the CONCACAF Nations League. Where does CIFA and football go from here?
Yeah, so the focus now is on the U20s, both the boys and the girls. They both have a tournament. I believe both are in Dominican Republic, but that's waiting to be confirmed. So the focus is on those, but the focus is also on the youth leagues, which should be starting in January as well. So getting those up and running is massively important. Obviously, the PFL is coming to an end, so that's important. And then the seniors, we keep training and keep preparing, because we'll have World Cup qualifiers, I believe, as of next September. So we don't want to be playing catch up by the time it gets around to June and July, and then we start again. So we have to do a lot more work physically. We have to improve tactically. So training will start again over the next few weeks or the latest in the new year, and we keep moving forwards.
Good stuff. That's Cayman Senior Men's National Head Coach Ben Pugh. Best of luck to yourself. All of CIFA, entire program's been a pleasure covering football in the Cayman Islands, and I wish you nothing but the best leading the senior team and all the programs that football has to offer in the Cayman Islands. Thank you, Ben.
Great, thanks, Jordan. And again, thank you for your help over the advertising the games and everything you've done for us as well. It's massively appreciated. So
absolutely,
all the best.
My pleasure. And amateur sports in the Cayman Islands is alive and well. Let's just hope that everybody can now pitch in and get the word out about how great our athletes are and continued success. More Let's Talk Sports Radio right here on 94.9 Bob FM. Stick around. Welcome back to Let's Talk Sports Radio right here on 94.9 Bob FM. Joining me now, a man I've had multiple conversations with over the 3 years that he's staged the Cayman Islands Classic. Of course, Wednesday wrapped up. The George Mason Patriots topped the New Mexico State Aggies 68-64. After trailing by double digits at half, they come back with a killer 45-point second half to take just the third Cayman Islands Classic championship. Joining me now to discuss it, the CEO of the Cayman Islands Classic, the man that makes it happen, Joe Wright. Good morning, Joe.
Morning, Jordan. Good morning, Caymans.
How are you?
Great to be here.
Still debriefing from another successful tournament here in Cayman?
Another success, and it's the funny thing is the team that I predicted to win it didn't win a game, and the team that I didn't want to come ended up winning it all.
Really? Tell me that story.
Well, my tournament director, asked me my thoughts about George Mason, and I didn't really have too many good things to say about it. Well, only because in the past the record wasn't so good, but like he always keeps telling me, year to year is totally different.
Yeah. Well, you mean I think they improved to 8-1 for the preseason,
right? After
this win, and Fairfax, Virginia. You look at Virginia. There's so many other schools you can pick out of Virginia. So it's like George Mason, really, but super, athletic, grinded out that win. It was a very good game. New Mexico State looked great. Nebraska, led by former Chicago Bull and Minnesota Timberwolf head coach Fred Hoiberg, topped South Florida 74-67 to take third place. Mm-hmm. And then Colorado State, the Rams, topped Washington State 79-69 to take fifth. And then Loyola Chicago Ramblers topped Old Dominion 68-61 to take seventh place. So overall thoughts on the tournament? What'd you think of the quality of play and basketball? How about the attendance, the local support in general? Give me your thoughts on the tournament.
Well, overall, we knew that the teams were coming in here weren't really known teams. That was, everybody pretty much known that because, the names are Duke, Kentucky, and North Carolina, the big schools. But we knew that, they had great programs coming in. We were excited about the field, like we had talked about when we had the
press conference.
Of the press conference, I had said that. So, overall, we're great. We would like to have just a little bit more fan support, but I think next year's field will bring everybody in a little bit earlier this year because next year there will be a lot of fans coming over. We're partnering up with some new companies in America that's going to be in charge of bringing alumni and fans from the United States over to the Caymans. With all the great words, compliments that New Mexico State, George Mason, all the schools they all go back and talk to other coaches.
Yeah.
And the other coaches are excited to come.
Sports is a word-of-mouth business, right? It's all done in face-to-face. I agree with you. Before we announce the teams for next year, I agree. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on Grand Cayman, you've got college basketball, exciting, fun atmosphere. I agree. I thought there should have been a little bit more attendance in terms of, what else is, sometimes I think to myself, covering sports here in Cayman, I know sometimes, when it comes to local sports and whatnot, during the week is a hard ask, but it's not like college basketball comes here, every month. It's like it's only here for 3 days once a year. I agree that, especially, considering last year with Creighton Clemson, we got really spoiled in that.
Oh, right.
That final
atmosphere.
Because, you had Creighton who took up an entire section.
Right.
And, for that final was electric last year, right? So, but overall, I was sitting with the Indiana Pacers scout for the final for the first half while he was there. Really nice guy. And, man, we were talking, he's like, there might not have been a lot of NBA quality players in this year's tournament, but the basketball was good and it was worth the visit. So, even for him, a guy that covers college, and he also used to run the Indiana Pacers G League team. So Fort Wayne, I believe it was.
Right.
So he was he says tournaments like this are useful because, you look at last year, Nick Claxton, the guy from Georgia who's now playing for the Brooklyn Nets.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of scouts that probably got their eye and got ahead of the game by seeing, wow, they got this guy. Because if you look at the guy, he's got arms and legs for days.
Right.
He can shoot.
6'11".
He's like exactly the type of NBA player that you want right now. Long, athletic, can shoot. He's got the body of a power forward, but plays like a guard, right? So,
Right.
And the year before that, you have Evans from Cincinnati who plays for the Warriors now. So, certainly the quality is there. And let's speak about next year. Obviously, the names are circulating. They're going around, and, very, very impressive field that you've assembled. So tell Cayman a little bit about next year.
Well, next year, we've hired a company out of Indiana and Seattle, which they're in charge of bringing all fans. So, we're going to try to bring at least 250 to 500 fans from each school to come down.
Oh, wow.
So, and we're going to start that process as soon as the college football bowls are done with this company. So they're excited about it. They came over they came over for 5 days with me to evaluate everything, and they had nothing but great things to say. They could sell this classic, sell the island. So that we figured this is going to be a big year going into year 4. It's going to be a great year. Mm-hmm. So, everything's starting to come full circle. It takes time. Things don't happen overnight. It's like everybody always asks me, well, why ain't this tournament like the Maui Classic? And I said, well, do beans grow overnight? Beans take time to grow. You got to develop it and make sure that it happens. And I think that we've done a good job of moving forward. All the coaches are happy. Players, fans are all excited about it. They're going to go home and tell their school. So, we're looking forward to not only year 4 going to be great, but, years on past there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's certainly an investment. And I think if we come back here in 10 years' time, I think this will be one of the most popular tournaments in the NCAA. I think Grand Cayman is an easy sell. As the tourism minister mentioned 8 months ago in the press conference, it happens in a weekend where, rooms are available, which is now becoming few and far between here.
Right.
There is no high and low season. It's just busy season 12 months of the year. And I agree. I think with the boosters and a lot of the alumni from strong schools continuing to see, the great experience. I think it's certainly something that, is only going up, especially with next year. You have a number of great schools coming in.
Right. And then the year after that's even probably going to be greater for more basketball for fans to see. And
really?
We really want to go out and tell the ladies that we have something special coming in 2000.
Oh, wow. Well, let's start with next year. Some of the names I've heard tossed around, you can confirm or deny. You've got Kansas State.
Right.
You've got
That's my university.
Is that where you went?
That's where I went to school.
Oh, really?
Had nothing but great memories. So I'm going to be bombarded with phone calls here in probably the next 6 months.
You're going to be wearing the purple and gray?
Purple. I'm going to be all about purple.
I love it. And, of course, a school that a lot of people here on Grand Cayman went to. You probably have a lot of alumni here. You're Miami,
the U,
the Hurricanes.
They're on their way.
That's also good. And a big school as well in terms of quality and tournament appearances. Nevada, the Wolfpack is coming next year. That's really huge.
Right.
Tell a little bit more some of the teams that are coming.
And also, Nevada has a very popular coach that's coming as well. He coached at New Mexico. Then he went to Iowa. Then he went to UCLA.
It's Eric Musselman, yeah?
No.
It's not?
No.
Does he not coach there?
He went to Arkansas. No, this is...
Oh, he left.
Yeah, I played against this guy back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Steve Alford.
Oh, Steve Alford.
They played in the NBA. Now he's been coaching for a while, but he's at Nevada. I actually saw them on the plane ride down here on Wednesday. So they're excited about coming. The other ones are going to be
keep going, yeah.
Keep going. We have LaSalle University.
Oh, LaSalle.
Which, the associate head coach used to be at Villanova. Has taken over that program. This is his first year, so next year we're expecting really good things. They're always a pretty strong school. That's a little private school that no one really talks about, but they're going to be really good. Next year they're coming from Philadelphia, so they'll probably bring a lot of fans down too.
Yeah, bring us some cheesesteaks.
Oh yeah, we have Northern Iowa. They're on the level of Creighton.
Right.
They have a very solid program. It's cold. And when they come in 400 to 600 fans. They bring a lot of fans with them. So we were excited to bring Northern Iowa down. Right when that word came out, I immediately said, yeah, bring them down. They're going to bring a lot of fans. We have Western Kentucky, which Western Kentucky is just another strong mid-major program. That's I think
Courtney Lee went there, didn't he?
Right. Courtney Lee went there. They have an NBA player that I think just left there. But their program is always strong. They're one of those schools, mid-major schools, that no major university wants to play because they know they can get beat by these guys. We have Ole Miss, which is Southeast Conference school, one of the big schools. They'll be coming down. They'll come down with 600 or 700 fans. They're big. We have Oregon State coming from the Pac-12.
Nice.
Which we're excited about Oregon State coming down. They'll travel really well as well. So we got a good mixture of schools that's coming down. It's going to be really competitive. I've heard the word's already getting out. So, we're very excited about next year's field, the companies that we're bringing on board to make things happen around the Cayman Islands.
And last but not least, I can't leave without asking. Well, what is this? Something the ladies are going to like in the following year?
The ladies.
What are we talking about here?
So
this is a strong female demographic listening right now.
Well, we've studied this. We with the platform that we were going with before, we couldn't really afford to bring the ladies college basketball down.
Okay.
But we figured it out. In 2021, we're going to add ladies basketball.
Wow.
So
really?
All the big school, UConn, South Carolina, Notre Dame, UCLA, all those girls may be coming to the Cayman Islands.
So is the whole tournament going to be female that year, or is it going to be male and female?
It'll be male and female.
Oh, really?
Right now we're trying to work out something where we can bring the girls down maybe 6 or 7 days before.
Oh, so you're going to have a week of basketball. Or like two different weeks.
The first week we'll go into the girls, and then the next day the boys come. So we're going to try to work it in. So the boys come in Saturday. We'll try to wrap the girls up on Friday, but they'll come in 5 or 6 days earlier than that. So we're going to have 2 weeks of basketball for the we're sorry we let the ladies out, but we're bringing them on, and hopefully that'll be a big following as well. So we'll have a lot more. And we've got some other things that we got in the works that we want to bring on board as well, as far as college.
That's great news. I think a lot if there's a young female basketball players in the Cayman Islands, they would, and males as well, young players that look, it's nice to see the diversity, not all just men's basketball.
Right,
so that's all great news. That's Joe Wright, CEO of CayMax Sports, who runs the Cayman Islands Classic. Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure covering your tournament here the 3 years, and I wish you nothing but the best. Who knows? Maybe I'll pop back in 1 year or so just to come down for a visit. So thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
As soon as I come down, I always come here.
All right, brother. Well, I always love supporting great events here in the Cayman Islands, and I wish you all the best. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, George.
All right, more Let's Talk Sports coming up right here on 94.9 Bob FM. Stick around. Welcome back to Let's Talk Sports Radio right here on 94.9 Bob FM. Joining me now, it wouldn't be an episode of LTS Radio without mixed martial arts reporter Aaron Bronsteter braving the cold on the Toronto Highway. Aaron, how are you, sir?
It's not that bad today. There's no snow on the ground. It's chilly. It's 39 Fahrenheit. You guys do Fahrenheit there, or you guys Celsius, the Cayman Islands?
I believe we're Fahrenheit. 39
Fahrenheit, and it's manageable weather. I'll leave it at that. It's not great, but it's manageable.
Fair enough. Well, you know what people would say about the UFC and mixed martial arts closing out the year? It's more than manageable. It's amazing. You got 3 really good cards and a bunch of bouts that have been signed since last we spoke. Let's start with this. What's the biggest news in MMA since last we spoke? You've got Dominic Reyes and John Jones signing on the line for the light heavyweight title. Ben Askren is retired since last we spoke. We haven't even talked about UFC 245, and now Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson are inching towards a title fight in the new year. What is the biggest news in MMA since last we spoke?
Well, because Tony and Khabib has not been confirmed, I'm going to go with Askren's retirement. I think Askren's retirement is a fairly big deal. He was kind of this like golden goose that everybody wanted to see in the UFC. We got to see it for just 1 year. We know the results now, but I think that his retirement is a pretty big story because obviously he was undefeated coming into the UFC. He wanted to make some noise. He wanted to compete for the title, and it just didn't go that way. Now, whether that can be chalked up to age, whether that can be chalked up to the evolution of mixed martial arts, where it's not, just being able to grapple at a really high level isn't necessarily enough to get you to the highest of high echelons in each division. But I think that Askren's legacy, unfortunately, with his UFC tenure, is going to be that he just wasn't UFC championship caliber. Now, again, had he gotten to the UFC back when he beat Douglas Lima in 2012, maybe we would have had a different story. But what we saw from Ben Askren was still a huge shakeup for the welterweight division. The welterweight division has more shine now than it had before Ben Askren got there because of Askren. He was the one who basically put Masvidal on the map, obviously not in the way that he would have liked to, but I think that he made a massive impact on the UFC in just the 1 year that he was there.
And what do you see for the future of Ben Askren? Is he somebody that could, follow in the footsteps of a Dominic Cruz or a Daniel Cormier and maybe join the staff, like the broadcasting staff? Because he is an outgoing, well-spoken individual. Where do you see Ben Askren's fit in mixed martial arts? He's spoken about coaching, and where would you like to see him maybe in the broadcasting booth?
I think he'd be great. I think the best opportunity for him would be a one championship. I don't think he wants to move his family out to Singapore. He's got all of his wrestling schools and everything. Maybe he could do some stuff at the ESPN desk, but I'm not sure exactly if he wants to go in that direction. I think he's more than content staying at home with his family, working on his wrestling schools, building those up and making money in that regard, and then doing some wrestling coaching on the side, private coaching. I know he coaches Macy Barber as well in MMA, but I think he's going to take a step out of MMA and stick more with wrestling, and I think that's what makes him happy. And that's what we'll see. Now, that being said, if a good offer comes along for him to become a broadcaster and he's not working every weekend and he's doing occasional work with the UFC, perhaps that's something that interests him. But then again, we don't know what his relationship is like with UFC brass. I know it was contentious before he joined. Has it gotten any better? Who knows? But I think that he would be a great addition to the broadcasting. He was willing to do it, and it was the right circumstance.
All right, let's jump to the news that's not quite news yet. Khabib and Tony inching towards a title fight. Reports out there saying that they're targeting April in the Barclays Center. This is a fight that UFC and mixed martial art fans have wanted to see. They've tried to schedule it on a number of occasions over the last 4 years, and for whatever reasons, different reasons, injuries, it hasn't come together. What's the latest on this fight coming together, and what do you think? Obviously, I know you probably would love to see it, as many other fans would like to see it. The two best lightweights in the game right now, two of the best overall fighters, maybe pound for pound. What's the latest on this Khabib versus Tony contract?
Well, you know what they say, fifth time's a charm. From what I've seen, it looks like the Khabib side of things is figured out. Tony has kind of said, it's go time, but I don't think that side of the deal has been signed yet. And I think that the UFC are doing what they tend to do sometimes when they're having issues with negotiations, just put the fight out, say it's going to happen, and then basically it comes down on the fighter, not on them. So I think that this is a tack. I mean, how often do they announce fights? Like 5 months in advance. Like we're talking April 18th here. That's 5 months away. That never happens. So unless that indicates to me they're having some sort of issues negotiating with the Bellinger Group and Tony Ferguson. So if that's the case, that's probably why this thing gets put out there in such an expeditious fashion. Now, I think that it will happen. I think that it's kind of weird that it's going to happen in Brooklyn, because that was the site of the massive soap opera that was UFC 233, I believe was the number. I'm not straight with numbers. Could be 223, one of the two of those. But with the Conor McGregor bus incident, with Ferguson having to pull out 1 week before the fight, Holloway stepping in, Holloway being pulled from the fight, eventually Iaquinta getting the fight. That was the craziest week of covering MMA that I've ever had. So it's interesting that it will be happening in Brooklyn. But with the big Russian population in that part of New York, it does make a lot of sense. And I know Khabib is very hesitant to fight in Vegas again. So if you're going to bring it to a big city and give it a big field, Brooklyn makes sense.
And for the passing MMA fan, the staunch UFC fan, what does this fight mean to the sport? Obviously, two great, like I said, pound-for-pound fighters. Khabib undefeated, looking unstoppable. Tony, I believe, on a 12-fight win streak, just one loss. Back in 2012 was the last time he lost, just his only loss in the UFC there. What does this fight mean to the sport, and how would you break it down?
Well, I think that Tony, and I've said this for a long time, that Tony is the biggest threat that Khabib has, just because of his style. He's one of these guys that is all offense. He's always looking for the finish. He's always looking to take advantage of any position. He's great off of his back. He's basically the kryptonite for Khabib. Now, that being said, we've seen what Khabib can do to people. We've seen how good he is. We saw what he did to Conor McGregor. There's a lot of paths to victory for Khabib as well. It's not, one of these things where this is a slam dunk. You can never call it a slam dunk when you're talking about Khabib. So I think that, all in all, this is going to be this is the best fight they can make right now. It's probably been the best fight they can make for the last 2 years. It still irks me that, I posted this on Twitter, that UFC last October with McGregor and Khabib, Khabib and Ferguson were in the same cage on the same night, like 20 minutes apart from one another. Still rubs me the wrong way, because all these times trying to make that fight happen, and then
Let's jump ahead a few weeks. This will be the last time you and I get a chance to talk on this platform about mixed martial arts. So let's go to the biggest card of the year, second to last for the UFC, 245, Saturday, December 14th at the T-Mobile Arena. A jam-packed card headlined by the welterweight title, Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington. Kamaru Usman, 15-1. Colby Covington, 15-1. With a lot of turmoil. These two guys don't like each other. Just a really great build. Obviously, Colby quickly playing into that. I guess if you use a wrestling term, he's playing into that heel role, doing a gimmick. Some people would look at him in the same mold as Conor McGregor's. Great for publicity. Just one loss in the UFC. And then you look at Kamaru Usman, undefeated in the UFC after winning the belt in March over Tyron Woodley. This is the headline fight of the biggest card of the year for the UFC. What do you think about the build, and what do you think about this fight?
I think it's a fantastic fight because I have no clue what's going to happen. It's one of those ones where, like, if you told me that Covington was going to dictate the pace, that he was going to have more in the tank, he was going to outland Usman, he was going to eventually be able to get a takedown, I believe you. If you told me that Usman was able to put out the same volume and eventually get a takedown or hold Covington down, I would believe you. If you said that Covington was going to score a knockout, I could believe that. If you told me that Usman was going to score a knockout, I could believe that. You know, these are the kind of fights that you have to love because it's basically going to come down to who's better on that day. You know, like, obviously one of them is probably going to win, you know, more than 50 times out of 100, but I don't think it's that many more than 50 times out of 100. And I think that's what makes this such an intriguing fight, and one that I'm so eager to watch. I just think it's a fantastic matchup for that reason. I just don't know what's going to happen. I think that's what makes it intriguing. I mean, at least with de Randamie and Nunes, you could say, well, the likely scenario is that Nunes scores a knockout. She's beaten de Randamie before. You know, we've seen it already. Maybe that's what happens. And then you look at Holloway versus Volkanovski. That's another one that's going to be interesting. I mean, I think that, you know, Holloway's a favorite, and I think that's the right side. But I do think that Volkanovski has as good a chance as anybody of beating Holloway. Volkanovski looks phenomenal against Aldo. So this card is going to be awesome. And, you know, having 2 straight weeks without a UFC event, you know, bless the gods, is great because it lets you kind of appreciate what you don't have, and the UFC doesn't have that as often as I'd like them to, where you can kind of take a step back. I think before every pay-per-view they should have a week off just to, like, whet the appetite of the fan. Now, of course, in terms of providing content in their network deals and whatever, that's not going to happen, but I just think that having the 2 weeks off and even having this one kind of, like, this Washington card next weekend to kind of whet your appetite is going to be awesome. So I just can't wait. I think it's going to be a tremendous night.
And then, yeah, like you mentioned, Max Holloway versus Alexander Volkanovski for the featherweight title. Volkanovski undefeated in UFC, the featherweight king. Blessed Express, you know, you said it's going to be a great fight. And also Amanda Nunes, the rematch against Germaine de Randamie, you know, the greatest women's fighter of all time. We'll talk about that women's fight. It's almost like it's like 3 main events in one. It's a jam-packed card. The women's divisions in general, I feel like they're struggling to make matches. This is a great fight, you know, to make. Without looking ahead, what do you think of this fight? And then moving forward, who can match up with Amanda Nunes, 2-division champion? You know, where do they go with the women's division after this fight? And what do you think of this particular fight?
Well, this fight is fantastic because, like I said, we've seen it before, but these are 2 different fighters now. I mean, that fight happened, 5-6 years ago. So de Randamie has looked unbelievable, really. I mean, she hasn't lost since that Nunes fight. She might have better technical striking than Amanda Nunes. I don't think she has the same power, but coming from that kickboxing background and having been a kickboxer for so many years, I think her technical striking is a lot better than Nunes. So if she has a good game plan, she can win this fight. I wouldn't predict that she wins it, but I think she certainly has what it takes to win the fight. And we saw her power on display in the last fight against Aspen Ladd, dropped her with one of the first strikes thrown of the entire fight. So, and Aspen Ladd was undefeated at that point. So this is a great matchup, and I think it's the best matchup that you can give Nunes right now in terms of competition. Now, moving forward, I think after this, I would like to see her versus Felicia Spencer at featherweight. I think that's a fight that makes a lot of sense. I think Spencer probably needs to get one more win before they make that, but since she's coming off the loss to Cyborg. But I think that Felicia Spencer showed a lot in that Cyborg fight, and that was a 3-round fight. But in a 5-round fight, I mean, she wasn't going anywhere against Cyborg, and Cyborg started to slow down a little bit. So I think that Felicia Spencer is somebody who might be able to give Nunes some trouble. Maybe that's the Canadian bias in me, but I think that she is probably the best threat at featherweight right now. There aren't a whole lot of we need to see what she has to offer still. We need to see if she's still as good as she was 2 years ago. But if she is, then we might have somebody who can give some trouble to Amanda Nunes in that division. Now, again, Nunes has been unstoppable since beating Rousey, and unfortunately, there haven't been a whole lot of challengers that have risen. I mean, look at who she's fought since then. Holt had one win since she lost to Misha Tate, I believe. I think she's only had one win since then against Dutch Kohea. And then she faced Raquel Pennington, who I think everybody thought would be a cakewalk. So I think that, they haven't had any – all the challengers seem to be beating each other, and that's one of the things that happens sometimes. When you have a champion that's hard to beat, sometimes you have to put the potential challengers against each other, and then they end up beating each other, and it ends up becoming confusing. So I think that's kind of what's happened in the women's bantamweight division.
Good stuff. That's mixed martial arts reporter Aaron Bronsteter making his final appearance, at least on this episode of Let's Talk Sports Radio here in the Cayman Islands. I want to thank you for giving us your time in this show. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you for all your insight and your great reporting and knowledge of mixed martial arts while we've broadcasted this great show here in Cayman. Thank you, Aaron.
Hey, my pleasure, Jordan. And we are excited for your return to the Great White North, and coffee's on me if we get a chance to sit down and chat.
Yeah, I would love that. That's TSN's Aaron Bronsteter. More Let's Talk Sports Radio coming up right here on 94.9 Bob FM. Stick around. Welcome back to Let's Talk Sports Radio right here on 94.9 Bob FM. Joining me now, a show favorite, talking some basketball today, the Mike on Much podcast host on TV and on iTunes, Mike Veerman, making his last appearance, much like I am, here on the final episode of Let's Talk Sports Radio. How are you, Mike?
I'm great. I'm honored to be on the last episode here of Let's Talk Sports. Like I said, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, man, and I just appreciate you having me on. So, bittersweet that's the last one, but happy to be here.
Yeah, and hoping to keep it going. Hopefully it's not the last one, just the last one that's produced in the Hurley's Media Studios. Anyways, lots of things happening in basketball since last we spoke. The Raptors set a franchise record starting 8-0 at home, which was highlighted by a scoreless game against for Joel Embiid and a win over the Sixers. First time Embiid's ever went scoreless in his professional career, so credit to Marc Gasol. Our beloved Hamilton Tiger Cats lost the Grey Cup to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and Canada basketball gets a number of young players committing to the FIBA qualifying tournament in Victoria, BC in this upcoming June. So lots of things to dive into. You tell me, Mike, what's the most exciting thing that's happened in basketball since last we spoke?
Well, I mean, I'm always going to be biased and say that it's what's going on with the Raptors. I actually do think they're one of the sort of the best young stories or best stories of the young season so far. Eric Koreen of The Athletic actually wrote an interesting piece about, outside of maybe Luka Doncic going for, becoming an MVP candidate, the Raptors' early success in sort of like a title defense year while losing your best player, one of your best perimeter defenders as well, Danny Green. It's been pretty incredible that they've been this competitive and this fun. And, you mentioned that Philly game where Joel dropped a donut. I don't know what was more fun, the win against the Lakers on the road or that Philly win at home. But they are two signature wins that sort of show what this team is capable of, especially since they didn't have Kyle or Serge. It's been pretty incredible. So for me, that's kind of the most exciting thing. But again, I'm biased because I'm a mega fan.
All fueled by ESPN's top 10, which did not include Toronto. When is the American media going to realize that us Canadians feed off of that adversity? Same with Joel Embiid. Like, do not pick a fight with Canada sports fans, okay? You're never going to lose. You have old men, doing the airplane, mocking you, scoreless game. I mean, when are people going to realize that Canada feeds off adversity, Mike?
It's true. It's true. We're very proud and at times sensitive people. So those things mix to sort of, I think we're susceptible to caring what outside media thinks about us. So when, like you said, we're not in the top 10 list with the American media for the Raptors, well, we take it very personally. But my position is kind of like, we don't really have, if you look at all those other teams in that top 10, they have like a definable superstar on those teams. Pascal Siakam's becoming that. And I do think he's getting a lot of sort of publicity on shows like The Jump with Rachel Nichols and other places, podcasts with, Zach Lowe or Bill Simmons. But he hasn't really jumped into the consciousness the way that, some of those other players on those huge teams have. So I think sometimes it's like unwarranted, meaning our team is good and scrappy. but it's kind of always the thing that happens. It's like, Brooklyn was a really fun, scrappy team last year, but they didn't have a superstar, so nobody really talked about them. It's a star league, really, and we lost one of the biggest in Kawhi. So I think it's just going to take a bit of time for the American media to come around and go, oh, wow, these guys are actually amazing, and Pascal Siakam is an MVP candidate. And it feels like it's already starting to happen.
Yes, led by Kenrick Perkins, which is always fun. So nice to have Ken. Nice to have Ken. Never didn't want to play against him on the court, and certainly don't want to go up against him in social media. He's a good follow. Canada in general. Certainly a wave of momentum, obviously, with the success of the Raptors. Canada's men's national basketball team ranked 21st in the world, now prepare for the FIBA qualifiers in Victoria, BC, on home soil this upcoming June. And the big story this week, how many young Canadians commit to the team on the eve of the schedule being released, led by Denver Nuggets, Jamal Murray, of course, RJ Barrett, his father, Rowan, a former national team player and now general manager, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who plays for the Pelicans, of course, Chris Boucher from the Raptors, Dylan Brooks from the Memphis Grizzlies, Kem Birch, Orlando Magic, Dwight Powell from the Mavericks, and, of course, stalwarts Corey Joseph, Tristan Thompson, and Kelly Olynyk. One name that does not appear there is a guy who is having a great season. That, of course, is Andrew Wiggins for the Minnesota Timberwolves, averaging a career high in shooting percentage and points. What does this mean for Canada basketball, and how do you feel as a basketball fan knowing that perhaps we are entering a golden age trying to qualify for the Olympics for the first time since the year 2000?
It's a very, very exciting time as like a Canadian basketball fan that these guys are committing. You actually left out our Hamilton brother.
Shy. Yes, my apologies.
So that's been exciting. Jamal Murray committed, and then there was sort of an avalanche of people committing after you said Nickeil, Shy. RJ did it when he was in town to Knicks on Wednesday night. Like you said, Wiggins isn't there, but I think from the reading between the lines and different reporting, it seems that Wiggins and Canada basketball don't have the best relationship, and I don't know what that really stems from or where it comes from, because the truth is, the last time he played for the team, Jay Triano was the coach, and Jay Triano is not the coach anymore. So it's, I think he played for a bit when Leo was the coach, but now it's Nick Nurse as the coach. So we'll see if Andrew Wiggins comes around, because honestly, it's like we want to, this is more for the Olympics. So what's interesting is you mentioned the tournament in Victoria, and that was huge for that, like us to get that qualifying tournament in Victoria, because I think the problem with everybody going over to Asia for this qualifying tournament this summer is nobody wanted to commit sort of the full month it ends up being and traveling that much in order to try and qualify for the Olympics. So it was a huge story here. And even in the States, that a lot of the young guys are like, I'm not going to commit that much time in my summer when I'm supposed to be improving on my skills, blah, 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 blah. So for Canada to get the Victoria tournament was huge because, again, it's just West Coast time. All those guys can either stay, if they're going to be in Canada anyway for the summer, or if they're down working out in LA, it's just literally a flight a little bit north. And then you get to compete. So it's going to be interesting, though, because another team that is in our pool is Greece. And, of course, they have Giannis, and he desperately wants to get his team to the Olympics. So it's not going to be easy. And so, we were talking about Wiggins. It'd be nice if Wiggins showed up just because it's another body we can put on Giannis Antetokounmpo to try and slow him down to secure our spot in the 2020 Summer Olympics.
Canada will have to play Greece, China, as well as Uruguay and the Czech Republic, as well as Turkey. It'll be live on DAZN, so there you go. We can certainly watch it, stream it. They're going to have to go through Greece, though, and like you said, going to have to go through Giannis, the Greek Freak. Let me ask you this. So Wiggins, hasn't committed, didn't come out. He's played for, obviously, Team Canada before, like you said, but new coach, Nick Nurse. In the past, Canada hasn't had this much talent probably ever. And, do you think it's a matter of Wiggins wanting to be the guy? I think 15 years ago, we only had Samuel Dallenberg, and I think this is when Leo Routens was the coach. And Samuel Dallenberg was, the stories that were coming out was that he was acting kind of like a prima donna. Do you think that this is a status move for Wiggins because he had played with less talent and now we have more talent? Maybe he wants to be the man. Is that the case? Or what do you think is going through Wiggins' mind?
It's a great question. It's so funny you brought up Sam Dallenberg because I have not thought about that guy in years. So that was a nice little one to pull out. But what's going on with Wiggins? It's a good question. I don't know. Here's the thing. If I'm Andrew Wiggins, I'm looking at this group of young Canadian talented dudes. Guys like Jamal Murray is already probably more accomplished than Andrew Wiggins as far as status in the league. So if you're him, you go, okay, I'm looking at all these guys. Shy's coming up. Nickeil's had a great rookie year so far. We got the stalwarts, like you said, Corey Joseph and Kelly Olynyk and Tristan Thompson. It's like, I kind of want to be a part of it. He knows all these guys. And I don't know if Wiggins is like a difficult personality. It seems like he's kind of painted that way, but historically his teammates, other than Jimmy Butler, have all really, really liked him, it seems like. It seems like he's a likable guy, but who knows? Like, who knows what's keeping him from going back? You know, maybe he felt like his experience was not good or that it was mishandled that first couple times around, and so he's like, until they get their act together, I'm not suiting up for Canada. But I don't think it's like a matter of pride or anything like that. Or maybe it's just he hasn't had a very good career so far, at least for a number one overall pick. So maybe he just feels like his summers need to be spent growing, you know, his game that best fits Minnesota Timberwolves and the NBA at large, as opposed to, you know, trying to help Canada get to the Olympics. That being said, unless Canada doesn't want him on the team, I would actually be pretty surprised if he doesn't play with this group of guys, because it feels like this is now a thing where it's like everybody's, you know, releasing their statements. They're all getting behind it. They want to be a part of this team. And, you know, it's all about next summer. If they can manage to get to the Tokyo Olympics for the first time since, I think, 2000, it's going to be exciting for the country, for those young guys. Like, don't forget, they're competitive dudes that play in the NBA. They absolutely want to go at the Americans. They want to see how they stack up against, you know, the best that America has to offer on the Olympic stage. I think I'd be very surprised if any of these guys sit it out voluntarily going forward, including Wiggins, even though he hasn't said anything yet. But we'll see.
Yeah, you know, I would agree. Why wouldn't Wiggins want to pair with this group? It would elevate his status, you know, as it relates to, you know, improving his skills as it relates to the Timberwolves. I mean, he's in the second year of a mega, you know, $147+ million contract. So it's not money. You know, he's not going to gain anything. Maybe he makes himself a better player in the public eye and in the eye of basketball people. But I agree. Like, well, this is all win-win. Like, in terms of Canadian pride, there'd be a, you know, at a time, you know, when Andrew Wiggins came to the league, he was the thing and Canada was behind him. So I think he needs to reciprocate and get on board, because this is, you know, once in a lifetime opportunity. All right. We want to talk about Kyrie Irving's Instagram post addressing the fact that he's not going to play in his return to Boston as he is now with the Brooklyn Nets. He kind of goes off on a very lengthy post, kind of talking about advocating mental health, and, you know, it's very wordy, so I'm not going to try and paraphrase it. But anyways, he was just lashing out at, you know, people who criticize him for sitting out his return to Boston. What do you think of this? And do you think that, you know, Kyrie's in the right to, you know, voice his opinion? Of course, he's entitled to freedom of speech, but what do you think?
I think Kyrie Irving is a very interesting individual on a few levels. His talent is undeniable, obviously. I mean, he's a champion. He sort of succeeded at the highest levels of basketball. But I think he's a very sort of cerebral and thoughtful guy for a basketball player. And, you know, like he's had, you know, obviously we all know about him sort of questioning whether the earth was round, or, you know, taking on the idea of Thanksgiving and what that sort of means historically. And he's a guy that thinks, I think, about a lot of things outside of just putting a ball in a basket. What's interesting about this latest sort of Instagram post is, you know, so he doesn't go back to Boston. He's been injured, so he hasn't played a few games, and he's kind of done this. I mean, I don't think he played in Cleveland the first time that when he was on Boston, they went back there. So I don't know if it's sort of him being, you know, he's non-confrontational by nature, or if he's sort of like, you know, if he's injured, why is he going to go sit on the bench for them just to abuse him verbally? But the post seemed to really get at the heart of the theater of sports. He was kind of suggesting that fans are buying into sort of like the performative nature of, like, you know, the Stephen A. Smith getting fans riled up, and he's saying you're all being sort of like tricked into thinking this way, and life is about more than just basketball or putting a ball in the hoop. And it almost felt like he was admonishing fans for being passionate, and I think that's a weird angle to take, because Kyrie Irving makes, you know, well over $30 million to play basketball, and the truth is, if he does find it overwhelming, or you know, he doesn't want to deal with the ire of fans in a city that he sort of had a tough year in, it's like, well, you know what, you can take it. Like, you make enough money that if you needed to, you could probably take a pass. You could sit a year out. There's lots of options if it's really weighing on your mind that much. But, you know, there's that famous line in Mad Men when Peggy Olson's talking to Don Draper, and she's saying, like, well, you don't give me any credit for this ad that I wrote. And he says, yeah, that's what the money's for. That's why I pay you. So sometimes when Kyrie goes off and he starts sort of like taking on the construct of professional sports and the relationship that fans have with the athletes, it's kind of like, well, that's why you make such an obscene amount of money, because of that passion. That's why people buy tickets. That's why people are invested in your personal life, your professional life, and everything about you. Like, they're investing in you, and then you get rewarded monetarily for it. That's kind of the way it works. And so, like, for a guy that's so thoughtful and is always sort of like challenging or thinking about the construct of the world or different sort of organizations or the way that we set things up, it's just a weird angle to take. But, you know, he was probably just having a dark night. He probably put on, you know, the highlights and saw those fans in Boston having, you know, taking the piss out of him. And he probably just felt the need to get on his Instagram and vent. So, you know, like I said, it is what it is. I just would say that, like, it's a dangerous thing to sort of like attack the very thing that pays you so well. And there's no one saying that he has to play basketball if it really is hurting him, you know, or affecting his mental health.
That Madman reference is an absolute mic drop, but I want to ask you, no pun intended, that was a great reference, man. I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up. Our beloved Hamilton Tiger Cats lose to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We're switching to Canadian football, folks. 33-12 in the 107th Grey Cup. The Ticats lose in the Grey Cup for the third time in 7 years. They're the longest drought in the CFL. They haven't won the Grey Cup since 1999. They lose most outstanding player Brandon Banks to injury in the Grey Cup itself earlier in the year. They lose Jeremiah Masoli, their quarterback, to a season-ending injury. So they go into the Grey Cup rather with the best record. Backup quarterback Dane Evans, who's playing well. But Hamilton is Tiger Town. Hamilton is Steel Town. And this was a crushing loss. Did you watch the game, and what do you think?
It's a good question. I mean, I will pay attention to sort of general sports stories from outside of basketball, but obviously basketball is the sort of sport that I make the most time for. But because this story, obviously CFL, Hamilton, we're all born and raised in Hamilton, it's got like a personal connection. I was keeping an eye on it. I was actually at my place on Sunday, and I was like, oh yeah, the Grey Cup's on, but I'm going to pop in. And, you know, I don't watch a lot of NFL really, to be honest. So, you know, I tuned in because of my connection to the city and because I know a lot of people that care if they win or lose. So you kind of watch it with that eye, like, oh, I'm rooting for these guys because people I know will love the outcome of them winning. So you kind of root with that in mind. But yeah, they were down pretty big when I popped in, and I was like, ooh, are they going to make a comeback? Yeah, I mean, it was what it was. I imagine it was disappointing, but as a fan that's not, or as a person who's not very invested, it's kind of nice to watch it because, you know, you're saying it was devastating, and I'm sure it was for a lot of people in Hamilton. For me personally, it's like you just kind of move on. Or like, oh, Watchmen is on in an hour. You know what I mean? Unlike the Raptors, which I live and die with, and it can ruin an evening if they have like a 2-point loss. And I'm going, why couldn't Gasol just get a couple more points? I don't consume the CFL that way, but you know, it's awesome for the city, and people seem to like it. I would have loved to have been in Hamilton to sort of watch the game with friends, but the outcome seems like people weren't going to really be partying into the night. So, are you a big Ticats fan?
Well, as you know, my first official job in sports media was with the Ticats in 2013,
course, yeah.
When they lost for the first of 3 times over the last 7 years to Saskatchewan in Saskatchewan. So yeah, no, I mean, I certainly have a connection to the team. And I know the fans are super passionate. So it's just, you know, coming into all the pieces were there, you know, the best record, Orlando Steinhauer, who was the defensive coach when I was there. He went to Fresno State and then came back this year, you know, first year as a head coach, you know, just a great season. It all just kind of fell apart in the Grey Cup. But yeah, you know, I think it's super disappointing, but I think now Hamilton continues to build to the 2021 when we host the Grey Cup, the 109th Grey Cup in Hamilton. So hopefully they can get their act together and, you know, end the drought. But I know a lot of fans were certainly disappointed.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, when that cup does come to to Hamilton, I want to be in the stands for that. I want to find a way to get my butt into that arena because there's no feeling quite like live sports, especially in a high-stakes game. So it'd be amazing to go see the Grey Cup in our hometown.
Hey, Ticats are humming. You tell Max to make a few calls. You do Mike on Much podcast in the end zone. I'll call President Scott Mitchell. I'll send him a text or an email. I'll say, listen, we got to do this. And, you know, we'll see. We'll see how far we go. I'm sure Max can know somebody. He can make it happen.
Oh, yeah, he'll sort it. We'll sort it out.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for all your appearances on Let's Talk Sports Radio here on Grand Cayman. Hopefully we continue this up in the Great White North. That's Mike on Much host, Mike Veerman. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks so much for having me on. I can't wait to continue doing this with you once you get back up here in Canada.
Appreciate it. More Let's Talk Sports Radio right here on 94.9 Bob FM. Stick around. 9 Bob FM. Stick around.